Hey everyone, welcome back. We are back today to talk about a very important issue, and that's some of the most common complaints that I hear from followers about leaders in close embrace. So I'm going to show you 3 mistakes that can happen if you're leading in close embrace that cause some instability as well as discomfort for the followers. I'm joined today by Eve once again, and she's going to help me demo this, hopefully without too much discomfort. So when we're in close embrace, there's not much room for error here, so we need to really fine-tune our alignment in different ways, and you'll be doing this with different people. But when you look at my shape here, when I take the embrace, one of the first mistakes that you can see very often on the dance floor is when the leader's head comes forward into the follower. So it can happen to this degree, it might happen even more, but it causes, as you see, the follower has to adjust to that. So typically it also is pronounced in the right shoulder, so the head is going to come forward and the shoulder comes forward. And so then you might be dancing with a follower and they're having to really adjust to your frame quite a bit and bend their upper spine in different ways to make it work. Now, as you see, Eve's wonderful technique allows her to adapt to that, and most followers will find a way to adapt, but it doesn't necessarily make it okay to keep doing it because first, it's not very comfortable, and secondly, it actually makes you as a leader less stable. So if you look at my frame here when I'm standing with my head aligned with my spine, and if I begin from this point to bring my shoulder forward, which is a very common reflex because we want to really hug around the follower, and then I also bring my head forward, you can now see how all of this weight is going to be added to the work that I already have to do as a leader. So if you suffer from any shoulder, neck tension, lower back tension, as a leader, a lot of times it comes from just having the neck, the head, and some of this sort of shoulder girdle forward too much. So that's the first very common mistake that you want to look out for. The best way to really see it in yourself is to make a video and make sure you're not doing that. Now, one thing with the head, I'll get asked this question a lot because people want to look down still, but if you can't bring your head forward, how are you going to do that? So what I do a lot of times in close embrace, and I have to really watch my head because I have a very bad habit of bringing my head forward, so I'm just going to bring this down a little bit. So if I still want to be able to look down, what I advise is that I just dip the head a little bit down as if I'm nodding to say yes. And so that allows me the view down on the floor, but I'm not intruding in my follower's space. So I just went from straight up to just a little bit down. And from here, when there's touch with my follower, it's very common for us to feel that we need to go into that touch and press against it. So the moment I feel something with my cheekbone and I feel my follower's head, I then want to press into it. And that's kind of how the habit starts. So whenever you take the embrace, you want to check in and make sure that if there's touch, there's just no pressure. It's just touching, but there's not necessarily a lot of information between the 2 points. Now, the second place where some of the discomfort can happen is in the close side of the embrace for the follower when the leader's arm really holds you tight. So I'm going to show you from the side here. If I really squeeze in and I demand that my follower really stays with me the whole time, I'm going to prevent some of the natural range for Eve to rotate around her spine. And even though she can make it work, again, it's not going to be very comfortable. Now also, because this arm is cinching in so tight, that also means that if for some reason Eve took a really big step away from me, she'll also pull me with her, because this tension is sort of keeping us together. So what I recommend when you take the embrace, you want to have a feeling of snugness, right? You want to feel as much of the followers back as possible, but also feel that you're allowing them to rotate inside the embrace, like you're not limiting their rotation. So for example, if I'm dancing with Eve and I'm asking her to pivot for something like this here, you see how I actually opened up my embrace a little bit because I feel that's what she needs. She needs that to make it around me. And the same thing if I go here, on this step here, I'm not going to hold her too snugly. I want to give her the space to feel that she's not having to work hard to make it around me. And that's something I talked about recently in my podcast episodes, that you want to track your partner's effort when they're going around you. And if you feel them shake a little bit or get a little tense, you want to just clock that, because that's, important pieces for your dance. Now, the third thing, the final thing I'll cover today, is the open side of the embrace. So when I take the open side of the embrace, on this side, ideally, we want to have the hands sort of aligned right in the middle with the elbows nicely facing down. Sometimes you might have them come together, but this is pretty normal to have them here. And very common for leaders to begin to push on the left side. This begins to come in this way. And not only does it come forward, but it also kind of rotates. And so you see how I'm forcing my follower's shoulder. She's holding her shoulder slightly more behind herself. And so that begins to kind of mess with her space, because now if I'm asking her to go here, she's having to go away from me more because I'm pushing into that space. So she can't really make space otherwise. So when we push from this side, it also invites the follower to push at that level, and that's also creating tension for both of us. So if I show you without my partner here, so this would be sort of ideally what you want is this feeling of this arm. It's as if it's reaching up, right? So you're holding it and it's resting from your back body. And what happens when we begin to push forward is typically the arm will turn, so it will be more of a internal rotation of the arm, and then it also pushes. So it really changes the energy of the embrace from being more sort of buoyant and open to now there's resistance in this direction. Let me show you with Eve one more time. So here, imagine it's as if from here I reach my arm, and if I were to keep reaching, it would keep reaching up this way. But we're just going to stop along the journey here. And there's this feeling of wanting to be light but connected. And so from this energy, just watch real close what I'm going to do. So first, the arm turns in, and then there's a push. And you see how Eve has to respond to that. Now I'm exaggerating. It might be only here, or it might be only here. But you'll be surprised how these small details create a lot of tension for the followers. They might not say anything at the moment, but it does bother us because I'm one of the followers, so I'm sharing this with you today. So those three things you got to watch for: your posture, head alignment. You want to watch the closed side of the embrace, make sure you're not cinching in, and make sure the left side of the embrace remains open and relaxed. And in fact, for the open side of the embrace, I frequently tell leaders, imagine that this left shoulder blade is pulling back most of the time. Like no matter where I am around Eve, it's like I want to keep my shoulder blade back so that I'm never intruding into her space. And it can be a little bit difficult to get used to that action, but once you get a sense of it, you'll realize it gives you a lot more space. So I might do another lesson just on that, but let me know if you have questions, if you need clarification. And yeah, let me know what other questions you have on this topic in the comments. If this is your first time visiting my channel, welcome. I encourage you to click that subscribe button. I post one of these once a week on Saturdays, so I hope I get to share this with you next week. See you on Saturday next week. Ciao.